Maryam C. Manis Jembatan Ancol is a well-known urban legend originating from Jakarta, Indonesia. This tale has its origins in the early 19th century during the Dutch colonial period when Jakarta was referred to as Batavia. The story revolves around a beautiful young girl named Maryam, who became a victim of tragic circumstances. In today's episode, we will dive into the legend of the sweet girl of Ancol Bridge. Our story takes place in the early 1800s in the city of Jakarta, Indonesia, which at the time was known as Batavia. Maryam was a beautiful 16-year-old girl living with her mother in a room above a shop owned by a wealthy merchant. Both Maryam and her mother worked in the shop in exchange for rent and a small amount of money. Maryam soon caught the eye of the shop owner, who desired her as his concubine. Maryam rejected his advances, but the wealthy merchant would not accept no for an answer. The man kept propositioning Maryam, his advances growing bolder and more lascivious as time passed. The situation soon became unbearable for young Maryam, and she decided to run away. With no money and with no one she could turn to for help, Maryam spent the next several days wandering the streets of Jakarta, occasionally being given food from friendly street vendors. After spending 2 weeks out on the street, Maryam met another wealthy man named Tambashia. Tambashia offered Maryam food and a comfortable place to sleep. A hungry and exhausted Maryam gladly accepted the kind man's offer. Tambashia invited her into his luxurious home, where Maryam was delighted to take a long hot bath and indulged in a full meal before being shown to her room. Maryam didn't realize how much she missed sleeping in a soft bed with clean sheets until now. It wasn't long, however, that Tambashia's true motives became known to her. In the middle of the night, Tambashia came into Maryam's room and attempted to force himself upon her. Maryam refused his advances, and despite her refusals and struggling to get away from him, Tambashia persisted. Maryam began kicking and screaming, and was finally forced to pick up a water pitcher and struck Tambashia on the side of his head. This stunned Tambashia long enough to allow Maryam to flee the home. An angry Tambashia, with blood still dripping from the side of his head, ordered his thugs to go find Maryam and bring her back to the house. The thugs managed to track down Maryam, but instead of bringing her back to Tambashia, they took her to a clearing by the river. The men had planned to take turns assaulting the poor young girl, but the stubborn Maryam would have none of that. She began screaming at the top of her lungs, hoping to catch the attention of anyone who might be in the area. The men did everything they could to quiet her, but despite their efforts, Maryam's screams grew even louder. One of the men picked up a rock and struck her in the head, hoping to knock her out, but he had struck Maryam so hard, he ended up killing her. In a panic, the men disposed of her body near Ancol Bridge, which later became associated with her ghostly presence. The haunting began shortly after these tragic events, leading many locals to report sightings of a beautiful young woman near the bridge. Pedestrians passing over the bridge have reported strange sounds emanating from below the bridge. Some have reported hearing the sounds of a woman crying, while others have heard the giggles and laughter of a young girl. Maryam's spirit is described as appearing as a beautiful maiden who lures unsuspecting drivers into accidents on the bridge. Witnesses have claimed that they saw her beckoning them for help before vanishing mysteriously. This phenomenon gained notoriety, particularly between the 1960s and 1990s, when numerous traffic accidents were reported in the area, often attributed to encounters with her ghost. One rainy night in September of 1998, businessman Frank Oye and his wife Linda were driving towards Ancol Bridge, when suddenly, Frank saw a girl standing in the middle of the road. Linda screamed as Frank swerved at the last moment to avoid hitting the girl. They ended up on the side of the road, shaken but unharmed. Frank got out of the car to check on the girl. She was nowhere to be seen. As he scanned the area, he saw the girl standing near the bank of the river near the bridge. As he approached her, the figure mysteriously vanished. Thinking she may have gone down the embankment, he walked up to the edge and looked down. What he saw was a burlap sack that appeared to be moving. Frank quickly climbed down and found that the sack contained a litter of abandoned puppies. Frank and Linda rescued the puppies, who surely would have perished had they not stopped to help. The legend of the sweet girl of Ancol Bridge has been popularized through various media adaptations, including films and television series that depict Maryam's story in different lights, sometimes portraying Maryam as a vengeful spirit and other times as a friendly ghost trying to assist those in need. This concludes today's episode of the Paranormal Report. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel. It is due to your continued viewership and support that we are able to bring you interesting and informative videos like this. The team here at the Paranormal Report really appreciates your support.